Hello and welcome to the first episode of the Wellness Podcast, sponsored by dowcloud.com. I am your host, Max Coleman. Today I am with Suzanne Astar. Suzanne is a body worker, an energy worker, a soul worker. Suzanne is a woman of many trades, and I'm super excited to talk to you today. So welcome, Suzanne.
Thanks, Max. I'm so glad to be with you today.
So I sort of tried explaining what it is that you do, but how would you describe the work that you do?
You know, I feel like when I describe my work to people as like being a body worker, people say, well, what's that? And how is that different than massage, or is it different than massage therapy? And I like to describe body work as the practice of learning from the body through touch, movement, and then trying to be in support of the body's return to wholesomeness. And I say the body because, the body mind is inextricable. It's interwoven. So when I say body, I mean body mind. Mm-hmm. When I say body, I mean body, mind, spirit, the whole thing. But what's been happening over time is bodywork's interesting because of the amount of things it can contain, the amount of different tools that can fit under that umbrella. And what happens over time is someone like me, once I became a massage therapist, I started adding different tools and then starting to realize that there is particular niches or particular things that I like doing more than others. I find more and more, I call myself a ceremonialist. And the reason why I do that is because I see more that the touch work I do is more becoming like a prayer than it is a perception of the body as if it is something that is fixed. I mean, that needs to be fixed, that there's something wrong. So quantum physics talks a lot about, how you pose or observe, how you pose a question or how you observe a phenomenon affects it. So I've started noticing that if I approach the body as if it were already whole, or approached a session as if it were like a ritual, a way for me to make an offering to life itself, then the outcome is quite different.
Interesting. How did you come to this? So how long have you been practicing?
I am the daughter of a very good physical therapist. It's always important that I start there.
Okay.
Because I grew up very good at sports, but I realized at some point that I was really attracted to massage. And whenever I brought it up to my father, he'd be like, you don't want to do that. You want to be a physical therapist, or you want to be an occupational therapist. And I liked massage. I also kind of wanted to be a psychotherapist because I was interested in the mind. And I found both, like many things, to be very incomplete. Like there weren't complete models that I saw in schools. So I started actually with Pilates because it was just happened to be luck that I was asked to edit a Pilates teacher training manual. So I got to actually be looking at the language. And as a psychotherapy major, I was really interested in how the breath and the movement, how that would affect the perception, and then how the perception would affect the experience of the body. And that became like a way in to working with the body. That's the whole thing started in 2004.
Wow. So when you started, did you consider yourself a massage therapist?
No, because I started with Pilates.
Okay.
And that was the entry. Okay. And what happened was my Pilates teacher was a gyrotonic teacher, and a Iyengar yoga therapist, a modern dancer, and a Pilates teacher. So she had all these perspectives, And I noticed when I was teaching mostly one-on-one, I thought that was the most interesting, that I liked working with people in their pain, but I was really curious about the fact that people would still be in emotional or psychological pain, even though their bodies would get better. And so I was like, well, Pilates isn't a complete model. What else gets closer? And then I found Tom Myers, who founded a school of Rolfing called KMI, took a class with him around how to talk about the body so it's easier as a movement therapist to help people. And then I was asked by one of his teachers to be her apprentice. And she said, well, you can't do it unless you go to massage therapy school. Mm-hmm. And so I thought, well, this will be a more complete picture of the body if I, become a massage therapist and a Pilates teacher.
Got it. Okay. And so how did that evolve to now describing yourself as a body worker?
Right. So I took massage therapy, and again, that nice little this model's almost complete. I thought acupressure was getting closer because at least there was a circle and you could see the relationship between the elements, and it talked about the spirit, the emotions, and the physicality. It's like, okay, that looks like it talks a little bit more about a whole person. But it wasn't until I left United States for kind of like a sabbatical that I was able to look at Thai massage, which had roots in Buddhism and was made, it was structured inside or near temples. So monks would be receiving body work and then able to meditate. And still in Thailand, they'll have, schools of Thai massage near monasteries. So there was, again, a little bit more of a whole picture. So as I added that modality in, I started getting a more expanded sense of myself. And then, things just kept evolving. Once I got back to the United States, I started getting deep into ecstatic dance and free-form dance movements, improvisational dance forms, and studying those. And then got some precious time apprenticing with an acupressure teacher who also was able to do alignment work. But I found that all of these different forms weren't the most important part. The most important part to me is like what I was focusing on or what I was intending to. And I think I was always interested in how one can focus on the body and find a still point, which is a similar goal as yoga. Like, unifying mind and body. And then as time went on, I found there were ways of touching people that helps them feel more connected to themselves, not just as a physicality, but as kind of like an emotionally integrated or spiritually integrated being.
Amazing. Cool.
So it developed, I don't think I had that full perspective. Frankly, it all came together in San Francisco when I moved here 3.5 years ago.
From where?
Seattle.
Oh. Mm-hmm. Okay, very cool. So
there's quite a bit of movement. Yeah. Travel. Mm-hmm.
So going back to that question about distinguishing between massage therapy and body work. So how would you make that distinction? What is massage therapy and what is body work, and what's that distinction?
I think a body worker, and my favorite part about this is it's all about how an individual self-identifies, which has subjectivity wrapped inside of it. So people may disagree with me on this, but I feel like what a massage therapist does, their intent may be to touch the muscles, the soft tissue. They may be connecting to tendons. They may be able to tend to ligaments. We're not supposed to manipulate any bones in massage therapy. And they may use things that people would understand, like rubbing or or kind of relaxing the body, but there can also be medical massage, which is very systematically looking at how to take like pain or what we call parasitic tension away from the system. And so I would say that massage therapy is always body work, but body work isn't always massage therapy. Body work could incorporate more like mind exercises. So you start to like visualize your own alignment. You could get off the table. You could, work with your structure. You could move a little bit, bring that alignment and get back on the table. You could toggle a little bit more between movement and touch. You could have very light pressure, which we found can be just as effective as removing clothes and being under a sheet and receiving kind of oil massage. There's just the amount that can be encompassed in that can be quite wide. Like there could be off of the body techniques where you're actually able to connect to the electromagnetic energy field around every single human and able to change things as small as muscles and bones and ligaments from far away. So body work can include things that are off of the body to directly on and very light to deeper work. But still within body work, if you see a body worker who's a massage therapist by trade, they won't be manipulating your bones and shouldn't be.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. So who are the people that you see usually? What are they usually looking for help with? Is it kind of all across the board, or do you find yourself seeing common themes?
Mm-hmm. What I noticed is most person who's interested in healing or wholesomeness, because some people don't want to be called healers, right? They want to be called like massage therapists. They don't want to be called a healer, or they want to become called an acupuncturist, not a healer. We could say anyone who's interested in providing holistic care. People find them in different ways, and I've tended to attract. This is one model I've never really advertised except through DAO which is such a sweet medium because DAO allows for a community, an online community to exist, and that's really special. So that's why I like that form. But most are referrals, and the people that come to me because they've heard that I do Pilates, and the form of Pilates, if someone comes to me, it's like therapeutic and mind-body integration. So I usually can't attract like high-performing athletes, but I don't get them because I am a replacement for their training. I'm a complement. I flesh out like what isn't being done. I'll never forget seeing a woman who used to be a high-performing athlete, and we were doing some work integrating trauma from when she hurt her leg, and I was having her do some different movements and mind-body integration exercises, which included a little singing. And she was like, I wish this was my PT, because I was looking at how many different things she hadn't done. So I'm like a gap filler in many ways. So if I see someone and I know that they need touch, they might refer someone to me, say, go Suzanne for a massage. And they come in and they say, I want a massage. Or I come in and say, oh, Suzanne helps connect the mind and the body. Okay. Or helps me integrate trauma. Not a psychotherapist, but the way that I help people integrate trauma is by bringing people into the present, integrating the sensations and regulating the body. So these are things that I've found over time can be really effective. And then I would say, but I do think a lot of them come through referrals, and sometimes because I'm so adaptable and because I have so many different tools, people will sometimes say, "Oh, it's just magic. You should go."
That's what I say. I don't know what else to call it.
I think it's just because I'm really interested in trying to listen to what makes a person unique. So I do a lot of work on like catering to, does this person need contact and for them to deeply relax, or does this person need to be aware of something and speak to me while they're connected to their body? Does someone need to move and see how every single movement relates to their life, which is more of like kind of like an emotional physical integration? Does this person need to connect to, like, I'll do things where people connect to their higher selves, and that's
so how do
yeah.
you diagnose that, or how do you determine what someone's need? Is it through that kind of initial like conversation you have with people, or when you kind of examine someone's body? What does that look like? What does that process look like?
I think after you do it for a long time, it's just pattern recognition. If someone walks in and they say, this hurts right here, and I say, well, why do you think that is? And they say, because I sit at my computer too much. That's their schema. That's their self-perception. So I'm not going to say, well, let's do some Pilates in a line. I might not take them into movement first, because if they're coming in thinking they're going to be touched, so I'm trying to assess like how they got to me, and trying to meet them in that, where they want to be met first, because I don't think that I'm trying to give something to someone that they need. I'm actually trying to mirror the person back to themselves, and as they see themselves, they actually end up choosing their own healing. If that makes any sense.
Explain that.
So I think the biggest thing I've been learning about is, if someone comes and I think they might need something else, but they seem like, they really want a specific thing, I'll offer them that specific thing first, because that way they're learning about how to identify a need, how to get it mirrored back to them, as opposed to pedestalizing myself or putting myself at a higher level and assuming that I'm better than someone. Like the whole goal of it is, how do you establish an even playing field? So all I end up being is a mirror for someone else's experience.
Amazing. Okay, there's a lot. I'm thinking of some of the other questions I kind of want to unpack here. One of the things you mentioned, something along the lines of, not that they're coming in as whole, even if they have, so if someone comes in with some shoulder issue, they might see like a problem, but it sounds like maybe you don't see it that, or they might feel like something is wrong or something is missing, but it sounds like you don't see it that way. Did I understand that correctly?
No, there's nothing wrong. One of my favorite body workers, who was incredibly successful, he still is, Bob Cooley. He's controversial, but he made a really good form called resisted stretching. That one of the things that I do is I do resisted stretching with people. And he talks about it in one of his books. He just says, 90% of when you look at a person is really working well. And it's those, one or two things, like, I'm pointing to this because this is what hurts on me. And it happened in this weird experience I had where my shoulder went into the wrong alignment. The best part about it, though, is if I perceive this pain as wrong, then my body starts cutting off information about how I can heal it. Because I really think the cutting edge of our time is going to be learning how to self-heal. So we're starting to break down these perceptions that there is a wise healer, a wise guru, that there's someone who knows more than you. Any potential healer, I think, is just a mirror for your own wholesomeness, because it can be problematic if you see the same person over and over again, hoping that they'll fix you, as opposed to like helping you realize just the right thing to get you to the next place, so that you can then identify what your goals are. So it's more of like the client is realizing that they are the one who's making the choice. They are the one who owns the system that heals itself. I'm only ever touching the energy field or the skin. I'm not inside the cells. The body does all that in there. Even though like my touch is sending a vibration right now, like even through this video, right? It's sending a vibration, and that vibration, you know, science has shown it permeates through, right? There's still a permeation through, like I can still affect the cells inside of my neck out here. But if part of, I think, what it is to be embodied or to have a sense of empowerment, to feel our own vitality in our own system, is to really feel full responsibility for ourselves. So if I'm in pain, it's not because it's my fault, but I get to really own my relationship to my attitudes, my intention, and my vision for myself, and therefore my behaviors.
Got it. So when someone comes in and they say, oh, my shoulder hurts because I'm at my desk all the time, what is it usually? Like, you know, if, you know, what is that, you know, if you were to think about what the root cause of that actually is there a common theme there, or is that, again,
it's so much
case by case? Yep.
No, it's so much, right? Because if you sit down, right, so one of the just simple functional things, if you sit down, you have, you know, curves in your spine. Everyone has curves in their spine. There's no straight spine. That's not a good thing. In order for gravity to diffuse itself over a long range, we need to have curves. But when you reverse a curve for a long period of time, like sitting down, the lower curve, the lumbar curve, goes in the opposite direction. It's usually supposed to go in, it goes out. Then what happens when it goes out is the neck actually goes into hyperextension. And when the neck goes into hyperextension, you can even see it right now, that the trapezius there starts clenching. And then there's another muscle, the levator scapular part, starts going up. So you have two muscles that are now hypertonic, meaning too tight. Put that on top of a perception of the body where the head and the neck, you can see it on this video right now, are the most important thing. If a person perceives that their own body, like this is the most important part of themselves, they're going to feel more energy, because energy just follows the flow of information. So it follows what we think about. If you see your body as this, you're going to feel more energy there.
So why is it that some people can sit at their desk all day for years and years and they don't have these issues, but then other people do?
Great question. I think it has to do with a few things. Stress and one's relationship to stress. People who have higher stress levels may have that more. We could go at, because there's so many ways to see an issue, we could go at it from like, there are, one way of seeing the body is their energy centers in alignment with like the major glands of the body, chakras. People may have heard of those already, right? But like throat chakra, that's the realm of expression. If people feel like they're not expressing themselves well, that can be part of it. If they're unhappy with their work and they can't articulate themselves well, if they're frustrated, there could be an excess or lack of flow of circulation in that area. It can be circulation issues. You know, like some bodies, every body is made up a different proportion of tissues. I could go more into that, but I don't know if we should. Like, this is from a Ayurvedic perspective of the body. So you know how you have like kind of skinny people, medium-bodied people, and thicker people, right? That's a certain proportion of tissue. Ectoderm, right, is nervous tissue. Mesoderm is muscle tissue, and endoderm is like organs, and different bodies have different proportions of that tissue, which means they have a different way that kind of the body processes and circulates chemicals, nutrients, hormones. And for some people, sitting at a desk is way more difficult than someone who, you know, has a body composition that's able to circulate and flow the energy through the whole body. Some bodies, circulation gets cut off when they sit for a long period of time. I'm one of those people, which is why you can see me moving so much.
Got it. Okay, so there's that. And then going back to the first thing you said, was stress and people's relationship with stress.
Yes.
So what's
most
the difference
important thing.
there?
Yeah, because there's different kinds of stress, right? There's eustress, EU stress. EU stress is good stress. This is eustress. It's a little stressful for me to be interviewed, but it's fun. It's like going for a run. But going for a run and like maybe racing somebody. I kind of think that's fun. Or having to learn choreography. Like that's difficult for me, but it's fun. I like it. If you said, Suzanne, I want you to learn to program tonight and you have to do it by midnight, I'm not a programmer. I would have a different form of stress. I would be like, this is not fun. And that would totally change my self-perception. And by the way, not all of this is conscious. Some of this is unconscious. People can say that yes to something and it might be deeply stressful and they don't even know it. Then they don't even know it until they're in pain, physical pain. And physical pain is sometimes the way that people understand that something doesn't work for them. Because they're operating from the realm of the unconscious.
Explain that more.
So this is interesting, Britt, because only about one of the models about how the mind works is only 10% of what's going on we're conscious of. 90% is in the unconscious. And the way that we can know that is, have you ever had a conversation with somebody and they said yes to something, but it didn't feel like they were really saying yes to you?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. They were saying, they might have been conscious and they might have not been. They might have thought that, oh yeah, I should go. They might have not even known why they said yes and they didn't want to, but you can feel it. And so the energy doesn't lie, but the person might be doing it out of a habit that they learned that might have been part of what the patterns that they absorbed when they were little, or just part of the patterns people experience living in the culture. I should do this for a living, even though I don't like it. And what will happen is people are like, I'm in so much pain, and they'll feel it. Or they'll be like, I'm so stressed. And it's because they've agreed to something and they don't even know that they're a no to it unless their body's in
pain. So how do you pick that up? So you mentioned pattern recognition. What does that look like?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So like, how does someone start to become aware?
Or how do you become aware? Actually, those are both good questions. Yeah, how do you become aware as the practitioner? And then how does the individual become aware of themselves?
So how do I become aware of myself or aware of someone else?
No, like someone comes in, they say their shoulder hurts because of their computer, but you realize it's something deeper. It's like they're not happy at their work, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How do you figure that out?
I think that's why I got interested in psychotherapy. I found over time that I actually take notes when people talk to me, because it's one of the ways I process information, and I really care about the words that someone uses, and I care about the order that they use them in. And I'll feel a vibration with certain words. They'll say, for example, I was talking to a client the other day, and she was mentioning something that was painful. And I said, tell me what you feel like you would have liked to happen. And I could feel as she was sitting there that she didn't really have the information available to actually answer my question. So she diverted her energy. She diverted her attention. So I'm just looking at, and most humans are really good at this. I just found most humans are good at identifying if someone is kind of telling the truth or not, or you can kind of feel something's not right. I just think that when I'm sitting with someone, I become really focused on, do their words match their energy state? Like if someone says, yeah, things are good. Yeah, things are good. Or this is my favorite. Someone, things are good. Yeah. Good. You can feel like, oh, is that good? Are things working out for you? Like if someone says, things are going great. There's so many things that excite me and interest me. There's different feeling behind it. And that's the thing I'm tracking. I'm tracking to where there are like these little blips in how they're speaking. And when there's a blip, and go, oh, let's pay attention to that thing. Tell me about that thing. And that becomes a way that I can start seeing how much they're aware of what brings them life and how much they're not aware of what brings them stress.
So then let's go back to, how do individuals become aware themselves?
I think that's why I became really interested in embodiment, because embodiment is just like the many and various ways to perceive and be in a body. So like one of the things that's easy to practice, we can do this together, is if I say yes and you feel the word yes in your body, maybe you'll feel like an upliftment. And if I say no and you feel no in your body, there might be like a decrease of energy or something, But if you can't perceive that, because that can be subtle, what you can just start to notice is like, what things bring you energy? Are there things like, if I took away the shoulds of life, you should go for a run. I'd say, well, if you tried something else, did you like that more than this, and why? So if a person becomes actually curious about their own experience, and we get rid of the cultural shoulds, the chances are so much higher that a person will become invested in their own journey. There's so much emphasis in our culture around knowing. I should know what I have to do with my life. I should. And in San Francisco, especially just because I live here, how fast it has to happen. You have to know right now, and you have to do it right now. And there aren't a lot of things around like, well, if I try this, how does it make me feel? And if I do this, how does it make me feel? And I noticed when I first started teaching Pilates, I would have someone do an exercise and I'd ask them, how does it feel? Because I realized that people would just do things and never ask themselves what I'm sensing. And what happens is there's a part of the brain called the insular cortex. UCSF actually pioneered some research about this. And the insular cortex has only been like maybe late 90s. Research about it came out. And it's basically the part of the brain that when one cultivates, helps you feel more individuated, autonomous, and empathetic. And what that means is that if I know myself, I can have empathy for you. But if I never ask myself, if I never ask, like, how does this make me feel? You might never know, what it's like to really know what drives you. And so the ways that I approach getting into a body, whether it's alignment or touch or movement, are all about a process of self-examination. So if we start to become curious about what it is that makes us, humans that like ourselves and like other people, then we get so much closer to inhabiting a life that we want to live. So it actually begins with curiosity, and it's a lifelong devotion, not to healing as an end goal, but to any practice of healing as a continuation of self-study.
I can relate to that, because I think back to, when I had really bad, chronic pain, how disconnected I was from my body. And to the point of not even realizing how much pain I was really in until I started getting curious. And that was really kind of the beginning of that journey. So that's fascinating. So let's talk about trauma. You mentioned trauma. So how does body work help with trauma? And what types of trauma can body work help with?
Yeah, I feel like trauma is one of these hot words
Sure.
that we are expanding our awareness of, right? Because there's soft trauma. Soft trauma would be like the experience of living with a roommate or a partner who said slightly demeaning things to you every day. How would bodywork help that? Or say you even have a boss, right? That just says things to you that kind of bring your self-confidence down. That could be soft trauma.
Mm.
So you go into a room and say you receive touch, and say me or whoever's working with you, usually, healers have egos. I have an ego. Everyone's got, self-serving. I've got that. But for the most part, the reason I'm doing this is because I love people. And most healers or whatever, body workers or people in my field, as vast as it is, they actually care about people. So the moment you receive touch from someone that actually cares about you, the word is called co-regulation. I am focused my entire energy on how do I show this person that I love them without them having to do anything or prove anything. If that's all they get, then all of a sudden that person's schema or worldview, like there's a digestibility of life, that it's not just, people who don't care about me or who are demeaning me. Self-confidence can be restored. The moment that the body moves through dance or the other movement work I do, there's actually emotional metabolization that happens. The body, when the body moves, is able to metabolize emotions. So many simple things like the difficulties and challenges just of kind of a normalish life with difficulties, there can be those traumas can be start to be digested. And when we make meaning of our pain, when I understand the meaning of something, then things that are trauma is just like you're stuck in time, pain is stuck in time, right? Then all of a sudden, if there's meaning, there's a metabolization.
What's an example?
And I've got so many, and I just want to make sure that I'm referencing
I'll give a few examples. Yeah.
I'm referencing a person. Honey, I'll give you a big one. I'll give you one of the biggest ones. I happened to give body work to someone that had just come out of San Quentin.
Out of what?
Hard trauma. That's San Quentin prison. A man.
Oh, prison.
A friend asked me if I'd be willing to take the case, and I said I would. He hadn't been touched in 26 years. He's the first person that came to my mind because he's also been very out with his story. And about the years I was on a podcast and talked about being molested and being raped in prison. And I remember being in the room with him, and he thought he was going to have to take his clothes off, and he was so scared. And I knew that if I had him do any of that, that could be re-traumatizing right away. It's
Sure.
too much too fast. The whole deal with integrating trauma is to see, like, is this person aware of being in their body? Are they able to feel themselves regulate? If they can, how can I support them becoming regulated? So for him, we did a lot of like just kind of looking around the room. I started noticing his breath drop. And then I asked him if I could just, if he was comfortable with me, if I could put a hand, near his hand, all of those things. He started breathing deeper. He said, I didn't know I could be loved. He had some tears. And then he started calming down. His breath started to expand. So that's like a more extreme case of just modulating to meet someone till they feel like their world is safer. And like a more everyday, I have a wonderful client who works in IT, a man, and all day he sits and he doesn't feel like there's any room for him to have a nonverbal experience of communication. So most of the session with him is actually him freely moving the body and me just mirroring him as if it's a whole entire language. And for him, that makes him feel like he's more of a human, that he's not just defined and loved by how smart he is, because he's super smart. But just to feel like the interpretation of being a man is not, how much can I do? How much can I prove? Like for him to just be supported in coming and feeling contact and moving and choosing his own movement. That does huge things for all the societal pressure and cultural pressure around, having to look and move and show up in a certain way.
So how would you define that trauma?
That to me is like soft.
Okay.
That's all, and other things that I won't share just from his personal experience around, just the qualities of, so that kind of trauma would be more like, what is the societal pressure around, being told this is how it is to be a man? That's traumatic for many men. You have to, this is the interpretation.
Mm-hmm.
I happen to be blessed to be with a really beautiful male partner that does not want to show up like that all the time. That is very limiting for him to.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what we're seeing a lot of is there's a reconfiguration for how male identity is expressed. So because we're looking a lot at gender these days, and like, how is it that a person in a male identified body can feel more full beyond the confines that were placed very heavily socially upon them for a long time around not feeling, Mm-hmm.
And then, so what happens to that trauma? So that trauma is in the body. Does it move? Does it melt? Does it just disappear? Where does it go? What happens?
That's like that's like the coolest question, and I'd love to hear more practitioners talk about that one. So ask that question to more people.
Okay.
For me, because it'd be really cool. I know that there are some people that see energy really well, and that means like energetic patterns through visuals. And I'm pretty sure that when I've looked at like if someone really simple that many people know of called Barbara Brennan, who made Hands of Light, those can show up if the electromagnetic field were mapped on a person and you could see kind of the emotional body expressed through light. You can see blocks. You can actually see like blobs of energy that actually dissolve. And that's when people they're very literal with our language. They feel lighter. What does that mean? There's the vibration around that thing. I think dissolution is a really good way to describe it. So there can be a dissolve, but no matter it's dissolved, it's reconfigured into a shape. So someone feels like they're more like themselves. Usually it's because the block or whatever has reconfigured so there's more balance in the whole structure. Usually, right, when I watch someone walk out, they look pinker, fuller, their body's more upright, but they're not trying to pull themselves there. Just the body's moving in the direction that it wants to go without having to think about it. That's the goal.
Amazing. Fascinating. Amazing work. So briefly tell me more about the different tools in your tool belt. You mentioned Pilates, massage therapy. What else? Because I remember you had mentioned to me you were learning about network care. What?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. What are your other tools? What are the other like therapies that you've learned?
I'll just bring her up because I love her. The reason I'm also moving a lot is because I get so excited about all this stuff. And one of my teachers, Barbara Carlson, but also a teacher I met before that, Cass Phelps, both beautiful teachers in a body of work called Continuum. Continuum is a form of movement and body exploration founded by an incredible healer named Emily Conrad. She was actually, her work was studied by Stanford University because of its effects on nerve tissue and the capacities to help people with paralysis. It's a very positive, beautiful, but for some people odd framework of the body, because you take all the rules off and you let someone really fully move. And what that does is it allows me to see a person less in the confining shapes that sometimes get placed upon us through fitness. So I can encourage a lot of growth through that form. That can just happen through massage, but also through dance. I do dance therapeutics. I wouldn't call myself a dance therapist. I just found ways that sometimes when people come to me, if they can't metabolize something they're talking about, I found ways that they can move for shorter periods of time, and then they're able to integrate and being witnessed. I do still do Pilates and alignment for people, and that helps people feel more, kind of structurally sound and mentally focused. I do resisted stretching, and that it uses kind of muscular tension against my resistance, so you can open up the fascia and have better range of motion. I do acupressure. I do kind of massage therapy that is my best attempt to integrate it into the nervous system. So I'm not trying to push too deep so a person's in a lot of pain, unless they really are asking for more pressure, which sometimes I will, sometimes I won't, depending on how much breath they're able to get in their body. Those are some of the ways. Yeah. And then I work at a network spinal analysis office. I don't perform network spinal analysis. I just observe and talk to an incredible therapist named Dr. Aidan Kinsella at Verve Wellness Studio. And amazing. We look at kind of how the spine and the myofascial integration work together.
Amazing. So it sounds like this is really your life's work, and this is kind of a never-ending education for you. It's not just you go to massage school for 2 years and then you're doing the same thing forever. You're constantly learning and growing and learning more about the body and learning more techniques. And I think this is one of the great things that people, just the value that you have to offer people. When I go to see you, I'm getting all the education that you've gotten over the years, both in kind of a classroom setting, but also working with bodies and working with individuals, working with people. And, the knowledge that you have, but not only the mental knowledge, but also I guess, how would you describe it? Is it, the physical knowledge or the emotional knowledge that you've developed? It's all coming, when someone comes in to see you for 60 minutes or 90 minutes, all of that is coming to fruition. All of that is serving that person. So thank you, Suzanne, for the work that you do. It's so it's so important, and there's so much value that you have and people like you have. And I think one thing that a lot of people don't realize is how, in my opinion, and this goes for you, but not just for all wellness practitioners, how undervalued you are in kind of a market sense, and people might say, oh, $100 for a massage, that's so expensive. But there's so much value there, right? In terms of how someone can walk out feeling lighter, feeling more aligned, feeling more energy, feeling more loved, that there are things there that you cannot put a price on. And I think more people need to know this. I think, or more people can know this.
And you brought up a really good point around that, because I feel like wellness practitioners like myself, the way that we can support the sharing of information around what this is becoming more savvy and more informed about the ways that we fit into the larger picture. Because if someone, doesn't think there's a lot of value in this kind of thing, it's just because there's still not a lot of cultural value placed on, quality of life, relaxation, like the amazing qualities of having less cortisol, deeper sleep, but also like increased self-confidence. Like there's not so much placed on that. And it's on us to embody, share information, and just love people up in the process.
But it's moving, it's changing, right? I mean, people are becoming more aware, especially, San Francisco, I think, is kind of maybe at the forefront somewhat of this shift. And I know you also wanted to talk about other shifts that are taking place. So anyone listening, depending on when you're listening, we're recording this and it's March 18th, 2020. It's week 1 of the San Francisco lockdown during the coronavirus. We'll see how this pans out 3 weeks from now, or 3 months from now, or 6 months from now. But aside from that, things are changing, right? We're online, we're on our phones a lot. What does this mean? What's happening in your view, and what opportunity is there for people to take better, to improve their health?
I think this is one of the most exciting times I've ever experienced for a variety of reasons. I have hosted women's circles, and I did most of my last one in person. My last session, though, that I co-hosted with another woman named Bailey Ann Robinson, we had to do it online. And it was part dance and part emotional processing. And what I noticed is, as I was doing dance facilitation, I was very aware that this is rare to be dancing with others, but not somatically with them. It's newer to do it in the online space. And so I was simultaneously really aware of my physicality, but some people have talked about the internet as the realm of the new sphere, or the realm of like consciousness and ideas. So I also felt that I was connected to a much larger audience, that even though there were, a smaller group of women on Zoom, it was as if we were connecting to a huge body of awareness. And so while this might sound a little abstract, I feel like there's going to be, in this time, a greater emphasis on like, how do you actually sense and feel into your own self-healing? Because going to your acupuncturist, or coming to me, or going to your chiropractor may not be available for the next few weeks. So there's going to be more emphasis on how do you actually feel in yourself, while simultaneously going online and connecting to a larger collective. And so we're going to be both perceiving our deep embeddedness in our own personal sphere in a way that I don't think we've had to as a culture, to really sit inside of your own space, and simultaneously be aware of kind of a global experience of, we could call it through the pandemic, but also the pandemic is giving us more of an awareness of a kind of a universal phenomenon that's happening. And so the perception of a body, if a human perceives a body as just me, that is one way of seeing yourself. But humans are also a species, and we're an interconnected species. And our survival, we are dependent on each other for our survival. And there has no other time that has been so apparent that we need each other, because most of us don't grow our own food, and most of us need the economy to run. Mm-hmm. So there's a perception of the body that I am both myself more, and I need everybody else. I need everybody else to stay home as much as they can, to take care of themselves. So there's both the awareness of interdependence and a reliance on the self. I think that's unprecedented. I haven't seen this before.
So what do you think, what are some things that people can do to take care of themselves? What are some of the things that you do?
I found that I live on the ground floor in a city in San Francisco. I live with another human. That's important. It's a human I like, my partner. What we've been doing recently is we wake up and we do a yoga practice together because we've decided, because there's something about being in close quarters, like we've decided that that's something we're going to do to create harmony in the space. After he gets off of online meetings or I get off of online meetings, we do have, it's more popular now to have dance breaks. We literally put music on and dance more. And I found that I toggle between going online and allowing myself to be with the online communities in yoga classes, but then also focusing really on the senses of my body. So I don't get wrapped up in the computer as being the only way that I know I have a body. It's actually one of the most ripe times for self-study. How does something really make me feel? How simple can I let myself be with myself, with an awareness that because the collective is going to be feeling, there's going to be more fear and uncertainty. People as an interdependent species will feel more fear and uncertainty. And so I think one of the major pieces is attitudinal. And so you're simultaneously seeing a lot of people talk about how much we need to focus on love and taking care of each other. And I think we're constantly having to do anything like, I will light a candle, I will say a prayer, I will be in silence, I will draw a picture, I will read a poem to keep allowing myself to be part of this kind of interdependent web in a way that kind of shifts the energy or the focus towards creativity and resilience and away from, other things that are going collectively, which could be, fear or anxiety.
Mm-hmm. And I think this is something that you're probably a lot better at working with fear and anxiety. But, if we think about someone who is feeling a lot of fear and anxiety and isn't connected, what kind of tips would you give that person?
Yeah. Don't trust your thoughts. If you're feeling fear, like just start there, like questioning the thought, are things so bad? Because the problem is if, there's real fear, like my house is burning down, and to distinguish it from projected fear. Because projected fear is like, is the economy going to crash? What happens is then, what trauma research has studied is then my worldview becomes narrower. And I'm actually, this is the crazy part. If I become afraid, sometimes it's actually harder for me to figure out how to make myself safe. That's the paradox. So it's actually, you actually are better as an animal species finding out how you can get the resources you need, have the creative idea that's going to help your business. You're better suited if you cultivate peace, calm, and multiple perspectives that are not fearful. You're better at adapting to the things that you're afraid of. It's like a mind shift, because actually the brain becomes too narrow when we're scared. It sees like two options. When I've meditated, when I've danced, when I laugh at something, I actually have like 10 more possibilities of the way I could interact with this, particularly uncertain environment that we're living in.
Amazing. Suzanne, thank you so much. Thank you for being our first guest. This is a lot of fun. It's now been about an hour? I know we thought it might be like 30 minutes, but this has been amazing. And anyone who's listening, I'll be sharing a link to Suzanne's DAO profile in the description. I have the pleasure of being able to personally recommend Suzanne. I see Suzanne personally, and she does amazing, amazing work. So if you are in San Francisco, Suzanne's right near Golden Gate Park and Haight, is that the neighborhood?
Yep, Cole Valley, but yeah, exactly.
Cole Valley. Right. Give her a call, do a session. You will be very happy that you did. So
and
cool.
I'll just plug,
Yeah.
you know, I am really skilled at doing this work online. I know that a lot of people are
Amazing.
shifting it online. So just, you will see those things. If you tune in the next 3 weeks, you'll see that on my website as too.
Okay. So if you were in San Francisco or if you were anywhere in the world, Suzanne is here to
Yes.
help.
You
Cool.
got it.
All right.
Thanks, honey.
Thank you.
Lots of love.